Today is Wednesday, July 12th. We'll tell you about what could be record-breaking flooding in New England and what the forecast looks like for the rest of this week. Also, NATO says it plans to accept Ukraine as a member, but the Ukrainian president still says the alliance is being absurd. We'll explain. Plus, why some Bank of America customers are eligible for a payout, how Taylor Swift proved to be too big for Ticketmaster again, and which city was just named the best American travel destination for the 11th year in a row. Those stories and more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Floodwaters just keep rising in the northeastern U.S., and now Vermont's governor is calling his state's flooding historic and catastrophic, saying it's destroyed thousands of homes and businesses. All across the state, crews have been rescuing people from their flooded cars and homes. Rescuers have mostly been going out in boats, but in some cases it was too dangerous for even boats, so they had to send in helicopters to airlift people to safety. The rain finally moved out of the Northeast yesterday, and the area is going to get a chance to dry out and clean up today. But the International Weather Service says showers and thunderstorms are possible again tomorrow and Friday in the same parts of the Northeast that are flooded now. President Biden approved an emergency declaration for Vermont, so federal resources will be mobilized to support the recovery efforts. A convicted killer who was once a member of the Charles Manson cult is now out of prison for the first time in more than 5 decades. Leslie Van Houten was 19 when she met the cult leader, who persuaded her to help kill supermarket executive Lino LaBianca and his wife Rosemary at their Los Angeles home. One night after 5 other people were killed at the home of director Roman Polanski. Van Houten served more than 50 years of her life sentence when she was let out. Judges said she has shown new insight, remorse, and realistic plans for her life outside prison. Now, at 73 years old, she'll spend about a year at a halfway house that will teach her how to get a job and support herself. Then she'll likely be on parole for about 3 years. Van Houten is the first Manson follower who took part in the killings to walk free. People who lost family members to the Manson cult murders say they're devastated to learn of her release. But Van Houten's attorney says she's not the same person she was when she committed the murders, so she's grateful for a second chance. Well, only one day into their summit, and NATO leaders have already made a pretty big decision. They agreed to offer Ukraine an invitation to join the alliance. NATO also dropped the requirement for Ukraine to fulfill a so-called membership action plan, which is a bureaucratic process that can take countries years, if not decades, to complete. Now, this is something Ukraine's President Zelensky has been asking for even before Russia invaded his country. But he's still disappointed because NATO did not give Ukraine any kind of concrete timeline. It says Ukraine will be allowed to join, but only, quote, when allies agree and conditions are met. Zelensky called the lack of specifics absurd, saying his country needs answers now while it's at war. But other members, like the U.S., say it's important not to give a timeline or checklist, saying specifics only risk escalating a conflict with Russia that could even spark a new world war. So NATO allies say for now, this is the best they can do. They also agreed to a new financial and political assistance program for Ukraine and set up a NATO-Ukraine Council to help with consultations and decision-making. Even though Ukraine is not an official member yet, Zelensky will take part in the summit today with the other allies. The United States has now formally rejoined the UN's Scientific, Education, and Cultural Organization. The U.S. first left UNESCO nearly 6 years ago over what the Trump administration saw as a bias against Israel. But now Israel says it's not opposed to the U.S. rejoining. American officials say they wanted to get back in, mostly to get a leg up in a global rivalry with China, since China has invested big money into UN organizations, and the U.S. thinks the Chinese are having a big influence on UNESCO's agenda. The U.S. is now UNESCO's 194th member. More news still ahead. But first, a break to thank our sponsor, AG1. So, of course, I hope you've made this podcast part of your everyday routine and that you feel more informed and have better conversations because of it. But now, if you're looking for a new simple daily habit to add into that could help you feel boosted energy and that you're giving your body the nutrition it craves, then consider AG1. That's at least how I feel now that I drink AG1 every day. I drink it before I've eaten anything else, and it makes me feel like I've set myself up for success for the rest of the day. With this one step of mixing a scoop of AG1 and water, maybe some ice and lemon juice, I immediately am signaling to myself that I care about my body, I care about my health, and that I want to feel good and energized today, and that I'm willing to take the necessary action. I truly notice a difference in my days. I feel sustained energy, improved digestion, and even more supported for mental clarity and focus. So if you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1. And you can get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. So go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. The U.S. government is officially cracking down on greenhouse gases used in refrigerators, air conditioners, and building insulation. We've told you about this rule before, but now it's become official. The Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, is limiting hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs. They're very good at trapping heat. In fact, the EPA says they're hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than carbon dioxide at warming the planet. But the new final rule implements a 40% reduction in the use of HFCs from 2024 to 2028. Congress overwhelmingly approved this idea, and both environmental and business groups backed it too. American companies have apparently already developed effective alternatives to HFCs. Microsoft scored a big win in court this week. A federal judge ruled the tech giant can move ahead with its $70 billion acquisition of video game giant Activision Blizzard in what could end up being the largest tech merger of all time. That's even though the FTC sued over it, saying the merger would give the company an anti-competitive advantage by owning the Xbox console and some of the most popular games played on it. Microsoft and Activision Blizzard have defended the deal, though, and promised to keep Activision Blizzard games on Microsoft's rival platform, PlayStation, too. So now the judge says there actually seems to be evidence the games will become more available to customers after the merger goes through. It can now close the deal within the next week, at least here in the U.S. The UK is blocking it. And it's not clear if the companies will try to sort that out before closing the deal at all. It's also not clear if the FTC will appeal this latest ruling. It's possible, but uncommon for the agency to do so at this point. The second largest commercial bank in the United States is in hot water with federal regulators. Bank of America was ordered to pay more than $100 million to customers. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau said the bank double-charged fees for insufficient funds to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. Also withheld reward bonuses and opened accounts without customers' permission or knowledge. On top of paying customers, Bank of America is also on the hook for an extra $150 million in government penalties for the same violations. So if you think you were double-charged fees or if a fake account was made in your name, you actually don't need to take any action. The CFPB says it will be up to the bank to send payments to anyone who is eligible. In response, one Bank of America executive told news outlets the bank has already addressed some of these issues, lowering overdraft fees and eliminating all non-sufficient fund fees last year. But the bank also promised to do more and says it will update regulators on its progress in a year. It could be the largest data breach ever reported by a healthcare provider. The hospital giant HCA Healthcare says hackers stole data from an external storage location that stored data for its 11 million patients. They were patients of about 1,400 hospitals and doctors' offices across 20 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. The compromised information includes patients' names, email addresses, phone numbers, birthdays, service locations, and upcoming appointment dates. And now all that information is apparently available for sale on a cybercrime forum. The company says it doesn't think hackers were able to see any payment information or clinical records. Now HCA says it plans to contact impacted patients and will offer credit monitoring and identity protection services where it's needed. In the meantime, it's asking people not to pay any invoices or billing requests without calling first to make sure they're legitimate. Taylor Swift's Eras tour seems to be causing just as much frenzy overseas as it has here in the U.S. And once again, it's pushing Ticketmaster to its limit. This time it happened in France. Fans were trying to buy tickets to 6 concerts set for next summer. And early in the morning, there were nearly 1 million shoppers waiting in the queue. Then came another meltdown. So the ticket seller stopped the sales, though it says tickets will go on sale again. Ticketmaster blamed a third-party vendor who's apparently working to resolve the issue. But you'll remember Ticketmaster also had glitches here in the U.S. Pre-sale saw overwhelming demand and crashed Ticketmaster systems, so Swift ended up having to cancel the general sale. Ticketmaster has apologized and says it's working to improve its technology. The Wall Street Journal says the Eras Tour is on track to become the biggest in history, with the potential to gross more than $1 billion. It turns out Americans love to travel to a city with a little Southern charm and urban flair. For the 11th year in a row, Travel and Leisure named Charleston, South Carolina, the top vacation spot in the U.S. The magazine published its yearly World's Best Awards yesterday, which included the readers' favorite cities ranking. People apparently complimented Charleston for having welcoming locals, historic attractions, and great shopping and dining. The awards were decided by a survey that brought in hundreds of thousands of votes. The number 2 spot on the list is a few thousand miles west, Santa Fe, New Mexico, home to food, art, and outdoor activities like skiing and hiking. New Orleans, Louisiana, Savannah, Georgia, and Chicago, Illinois round out the top 5. All right, now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, this episode is sponsored by HelloFresh. If you're feeling stuck in a recipe rut and you want to switch things up this summer, check out HelloFresh, where you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. HelloFresh has options to please even the pickiest eaters, and I like that they have delicious but convenient meals that will help when you need dinner, like now. I recently tried their new fast and fresh options that are ready in just 15 minutes or less. For example, we made their chicken and tomato grain bowls with garlicky white sauce and lemon. It was so good. My whole family ate it up, and it felt like a breeze. So this summer, you can spend less time meal planning and prepping because HelloFresh sends you these pre-portioned ingredients that make it easier, faster, and less wasteful to make a meal at home. And by the way, Green Chef is now owned by HelloFresh, so no matter which you choose, there's something for everyone. Go to HelloFresh.com/newsworthy16 and use code newsworthy16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/newsworthy16 and use that code newsworthy16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. So we are talking about getting out of work with your employer's blessing. CNBC says more companies are starting to recognize the need to address employee burnout. And really, it's for everyone's sake, since workers often report overall better mental health, increased job satisfaction, and being more engaged and productive when they get back from a vacation. But recent surveys have also shown it's still a challenge for a lot of workers to totally unplug from the office, even when taking days off. Like in a recent Harris poll of more than 2,000 American workers, more than half said they still stay connected to work on vacation. But human resource managers say that's not going to help you recharge. So now some companies like Deloitte are starting to offer collective disconnect days. That's when the entire workforce is off at the same time, so no one will feel guilty about leaving work behind or feel the need to check in. But even if that's not something your office offers, Forbes has some advice to really make the most of that time off. For example, it says, plan ahead of time, find someone in the office who will manage your day-to-day tasks, and make sure all your coworkers know that you will be away. Well, thank you so much for joining us as part of your daily routine. And a special shout out to our Newsworthy Insiders. Thank you so much for your support. If you're not an insider yet, please do come over and join us. You get immediate access to ad-free episodes every day and some bonus content where I answer your questions. Plus, you'll be helping to make sure we can keep providing fast, fair, fun news every day. So go to thenewsworthy.com/insider to start your 7-day free trial. All right, we'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.